So guys, so the other day I was talking to one of my purple belts who came up to me after we had a good roll, and he says, Chewy, I'm gonna ask you a question, and I don't mean this in any sort of backhanded sort of way, and I'm also not trying to blow smoke up your glutes either. Well, he didn't say glutes, right? I added that part in. So he comes up to me and prefaces the question like this, so I'm like, what the hell are you getting ready to ask me, bro? So he sits down and says, hey, I just wanna know, how do you stay so damn good at jiu-jitsu, but you don't train that much? And he's sort of referencing the fact that on most weeks, I only train about 3 days a week as far as rolling goes, right? I roll about 3 days a week. Sometimes there's a 2-a-day session on there, but typically 3 days a week is my rolling. Sometimes it's 4 if I'm feeling a little frisky and got a little energy, and sometimes I roll less if my body's a little worn down, right? But usually 3 days a week. And so he's asking me, like, how do you stay so good at jiu-jitsu with only 3 days a week? And he also mentioned how, like, I've been training jiu-jitsu since, 2003. I wrestled in 2000. I've been training grappling a long time. And he's like, I watch you walk around and lift weights. You're all sort of spry. Like, I'm not like hunched over. I'm not broken. I'm not jacked up. He's like, well, how do you do that? Right? And so I wanted to sort of share this with you. This is mostly going to be for, I guess, the older people, because most young people that are training, they're going to like, you've got this body that you can just put through the ringer, and so you're not going to listen to it. But, when you get older, you can come back to this video later. But especially for a lot of the older people watching, I wanted to give you guys some ideas of, one, of how to improve in jiu-jitsu without destroying your body, but also, two, to avoid this cult that's in jiu-jitsu, right? Now, I mean, jiu-jitsu itself is kind of a cult, right? But there's this sort of sub-cult in jiu-jitsu that many of us join for a period of time, whether we know it or not, right? We do it unconsciously. And that cult is this cult of like hard training every single day, this cult of gym wars, right? This cult of everyday pohada. I'm a gringo from Kentucky. I don't know if I'm saying that right? Pohada. But it's this hard training mindset that, like, basically someone holds up the training intensity and the training volume of some 20-something-year-old who's getting ready for some ADCC championships or whatever, and holding that up as that should be the gold standard for everybody that walks in the gym, right? You get some 40-year-old who's coming in to lose a little weight and try it, and all of a sudden he ends up getting shark tanked in the middle of the mats, and it's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. He gets injured, spit back out, right? I see it happen all the time, right? I've seen so many messages that you guys have sent me have come into it. Now, accidents happen, injuries happen. That's just the way that it is. But we can be far more intelligent with our training, and we can get so much from our training if we do a few things. One of the things that's really important, and if you want more of this kind of stuff, like stuff that you can use to get the most from your open rolling and your open mats and things like that, I put an ebook together. It's down in the links below. Check it out. But it'll give you a lot of different ideas that you can use to get more from your training. But one of the simplest things that you can do, and this is something I do, is that when I'm rolling, I have a very clear focus on what I'm doing. Now, many of you guys were listening to this and you're just rolling your eyes, right? You're like, yeah, boring, have a focus, right? It's not an instant, quick hack or some tweak or whatever that like sounds alluring, right? It sounds so simple, but a lot of times it's the simple stuff that actually works, right? A lot of this like crazy hack type stuff like that has all sorts of novelty, like you haven't heard about it because nobody's doing it, right? It doesn't actually work. But a lot of times it's the stuff that everybody does that if you actually talk to the best people, it's what they do. There it is right there, right? And from both my experience, from talking to so many high-level people over the years, one of the things is you step on the mat, you have a focus. Here's what I'm working on. And when I go to seminars, I will sort of sometimes ask people, hey, what are you working on today? What are you working on? And a lot of times the best people in those rooms can answer that question immediately. Many of my students who are in that same situation, right, can answer those questions immediately. Like one of my students I was rolling with today, he's a multiple-time Pan and world champion. He's talking, he's like, I'm working on this. He knows what he's on the mat doing. If you talk to a lot of people, they're just there. Hey, what are you working on? I'm just here, man. I'm just moving around, going with the flow. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That takes on a sort of a nice, like, turn off your brain and just relax and enjoy the training, right? That's fine. But if you're trying to get better, and if you're trying to wring out as much as you can as far as progress goes from those limited training sessions, so you don't have to train like every single day of the week, right? You can train a little bit less and still get better. You've got to be focused. You have to have something that you're shooting for. There's so many benefits to it, right? But again, my encouragement to you guys is like, if you don't step on the mat and you don't have anything to focus on, you need to have something to focus on. So going to my student, I was telling him, every time I step on the mat, I know what I'm working on. I have something very specific to it. Now, some of you also might be lower belts. You might be a white belt. And you might be like, I can't do that, Chewy. You've been training for 20 something years. How can I decide what I'm going to focus on? You may not be able to decide, but you're probably going to end up in some bad spots as a newer white belt, right? So one of the things I used to do as a new white belt is I would look up and be like, okay, 30 seconds, let's see if I can last for the entire round. Let's see if I can do it for a minute next time, right? What can I do to just improve little bits by little bits and survive in those bad positions? Or I used to roll people from guard, and when I would get on top of them, I would, usually get the takedown with the wrestling that I had, and I would get on top of them, and I would just say, let me see if I could just not get submitted on top of guard today. That's gonna be my goal. And then now I have the ability to direct the training far more than I used to, and I can kind of put myself wherever I want to and get something out of it. But that's the thing that I was sharing with them, is like, I can still improve. I can still go win No-Gi Worlds on a smaller training volume because of the fact that I'm super focused when I'm actually rolling to get more skill for myself, right? Another thing, and I'll just share this with you, I have other things working for me, and they're worth bringing up, right? I've been training for 20-something years at this point. Started wrestling in 2000, started Jiu-Jitsu in 2003, so I've got those advantages. I've got a deep well of knowledge under me, right? And then also, too, I lift weights 3 or 4 days a week. I think it's really important. As I get older, by the way, this becomes more and more important. I think any older grappler who's trying to train, you should be training, and you should also be doing like your lifting too. So as you're doing your rolling, you need to have some lifting in there, because I found that from my experience talking to so many people who like lift weights and do jiu-jitsu, they hang around a lot longer and their bodies stay together a lot longer than the people that don't. And for me, I can just think about the fact that, me and my wife became parents last year. And I remember became parents, and your schedule gets real screwed up when you have a kid, right? Many of you parents know this. And I didn't lift for like a month. And I remember my elbows were getting sore, my knees were getting stiff. And I came up to my wife, I said, baby, I got to start lifting weights again because I'm hurting, right? So I, started waking up a little earlier, squeezing in my lifts. And within a week and a half, it felt better. Like everything felt better because I have a program that's specific to me and helps balance things out. But that's one of the things that, my purple belt doesn't see the lifting and the conditioning, but it's super important. And what that does is that lifting and that jiu-jitsu and having a training schedule where I'm never overdoing it, what it does is it allows me to train for a really, really, really long time and not have to take off for injuries, right? Because I see so many people that train really, really hard, they get injured, drop off. Really, really hard, injuries get dropped off. It's like trying to get your car up to 70 miles an hour on the highway, but you keep slamming the brake down. It's very tough to do. Whereas if you can train at a good clip for a long period of time with a focus on the skills you're trying to develop, that you're going to get better doing that. Opposed to, I train really hard, go really, really hard, gym wars, and injured. Then I'm off the mats for a long time. I get overweight, whatever. You get the idea. So anyways, that's the idea. And that's, again, it's an idea that anybody can use. If I could have trained a little bit more like this when I was younger, I would have probably still rolled more because I could have done it. But I still would have been more thoughtful about my approach. And I wish I would have been when I was in my younger days. But especially for you men and women that are a bit older, it's a good idea to be very thoughtful with your approach in jiu-jitsu, and then also making sure that you're getting some weight training in there to help be the glue that keeps your body together. So that's the idea, guys. I just wanted to share that with you because I had a conversation with my student, and we were talking about this idea, and I wanted to share it with you guys, and hopefully it helps some of you. Talk to you next time.